Breaking news, Judge Peter Cahill has excused a second juror after questioning over the civil settlement between the city of Minneapolis and George Floyd's family. The judge has just finished questioning all 7 of the jurors who were seated before this news broke. 2 of the 7 kicked, but quite a few of them were aware of this settlement and of the eye-popping number of $27 million.
We're joined now by criminal defense attorney and legal analyst Joe Tamburino. Joe, 2 of the 7 here. Is this a surprise to you?
No, not really. Of course, there were going to be some people who were affected by this and heard it. And I think even you could see the judge, he looks a little annoyed, and rightfully so, about this whole thing that the city did. I think you even heard him slam his pen down after he excused the first one.
The jurors were really asked if they had the ability to compartmentalize this. Joe, if you're the defense attorney for Derek Chauvin, there are some of these jurors who told the judge, yes, they could separate the civil process from the criminal. How do you feel as the defense attorney right now?
If I were the defense attorney, I would feel being attacked unfairly because, I mean, think of the optics. Right across from him is the Attorney General himself, Keith Ellison, and on Friday was the Attorney General's own son, Jeremiah Ellison, on stage announcing this $27 million award with the mayor and the city attorney and the president of the council. So yeah, if you're the defense attorney, you're feeling unfairly attacked.
Joe, I was a little surprised at how quickly the judge went through this questioning. Basically, he really asked one question and then went on from there. But this was within, less than half an hour. He got through these 7 jurors, asking them, did you see news of the settlement and could you put it aside? After we went through hours of extensive questioning for all of these jurors just last week.
Yes, and he basically decided to focus this down on the ultimate question. Did you hear anything about the civil suit and media attention last week? So he decided to make it very pointed. I think he did that because he doesn't want to go down different alleys and bring up different issues. He just wants to focus on the main issue.
Does Derek Chauvin's attorney have any recourse here? A couple of these jurors who were aware of this, if I were Chauvin's attorney, I might be skeptical of their ability to put that aside during deliberations. Can he strike these folks, or is he stuck?
He's stuck. This is ultimately up to the judge. The rules of engagement for today are that the judge will question these jurors, and if the judge feels like they should be stricken for cause, he will do that, and he's already struck 2 of them for cause.
Joe, if the juror hadn't, there was one juror that said they hadn't heard about the settlement. Well, at this point now they have. The other jurors are hearing, okay, this is big enough news for me to be called back in a Zoom call. Does that affect now what these jurors who are staying on the jury, how they might think?
Yes, because even being called back for questioning highlights the issue. But really, there was no other choice. You had to call these 7 back and question them. It's just too big of an issue. And the timing is horrible in the case. I mean, as you even heard one of the jurors who is remaining on the case say she heard about the $27 million, but she was really surprised about the timing. So you have to call these people back and ask them.
Joe, you can understand the criticism of the timing, but on the flip side, part of the reason the city likely made a deal before the trial is if Derek Chauvin were found guilty, $27 million might be a bargain. They might have to pay more with a guilty verdict, right? So the city was sort of in a tough spot here as well.
Well, but you see, they could have agreed to a settlement and simply waited 6 weeks to announce it. In other cases, in the Ruschek case, in the Philando Castile case, these awards were announced after the jury trial. So the city could do what it wants to do with arriving at a settlement, that's for sure, but it didn't have to announce it before the trial.
All right. Joe Tamburino, thanks so much. We really appreciate your legal analysis this morning.